Hey, what's up, guys? Joker here, and welcome to episode 79. I had to bring up the control panel page to check because I couldn't even remember. I'm just so used to doing so many episodes, I can't even keep count anymore. But we're joined this week by Anthony, the senior editor from over at Tweaktown. What's going on, Anthony? First time here, yeah?
How you going, man?
Not
I'm
too
good.
bad. So yeah, like I said, he's the senior editor over at Tweaktown. What do you do over there mostly besides edit?
I head up the news. I review graphics cards and have a million test beds around me, and everything in between.
Yeah, you're a big time GPU enthusiast, is what I've caught on from
Big time
following
GPU.
you and
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love multi monitors, multi GPUs. I'm a massive PC enthusiast. Love it.
Sweet. All right. Yeah. So we're going to be talking a lot today about AMD. They had their big Zen reveal sort of yesterday. Well, it's like the second reveal. They revealed it a couple of times already. But before we get into that, we're going to do some tech pickups. I was going to let you go first since you're the guest here. What did you have that you were going to show off to the viewers?
So a couple of days ago, about a week ago, I guess, I received the Secret Lab Titan chair, which is super comfortable. I'm sitting on that now. I think I've done about 30 hours of Overwatch in the last 4 or 5 days on it. That's my latest, I guess, gift from the gods.
Have you been on the patch recently? The one where they added the Christmas stuff in?
Yes, and I was devastated. I love playing Mercy. I was devastated. There's no Mercy costume at all.
Oh, they didn't do a Mercy one. She should have been Mrs. Claus.
I know,
Or Who'd they,
I
who'd
know,
they,
I know.
who'd they,
That's
who'd
exactly
they,
what I thought.
who'd they give
None.
that? Who'd they give Mrs. Claus to, May?
I think I can't even remember. There was a Mrs. Claus-ish kind of skin, but I can't remember the character because all I do is I literally only play Mercy. That's it.
Yeah, I had downloaded the patch earlier and I was gonna boot it up, but then I got into some other things. I haven't had a chance to look at it yet. But I saw Torbjorn. He's Santa, obviously. That was a
Yes,
given.
yes. I thought
That
it was
was
going to be Roadhog. I thought it would be Roadhog.
thought so.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know. I thought I someone had said a couple months back when the Halloween one came out, they were like, "Oh, I bet they're gonna do a Christmas one and they'll have Torbjorn as Santa Claus." I was just like, "Yeah, that sounds about right." They called
Yep,
it.
yep. There you go.
Mostly, I've been playing Watch Dogs 2 a lot recently, and BF1 since the new patch rolled out a couple days ago. What have you been playing besides Overwatch or just that?
It's literally just Overwatch. I did get into Battlefield 1 a little bit, but for me, in my opinion, they took too long to release hardcore mode, so I kind of lost interest.
Yeah, I'm still enjoying going on and playing with friends, but I don't get the same experience I felt like I had in previous Battlefield games when they had the more advanced server browser and custom servers and things. It's
Yep,
just like rush mode. It's always going to be 24 players. It's never going to change.
yep.
It gives it more uniform experience, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like the Battlefield that I know.
No, if it's yeah, it's familiar, but it's strange at the same time. My brother and I were talking about that like literally last night, and you can feel Battlefield, but it's just doesn't feel like it could be. There's a lot of improvement that can be made. A lot of improvement.
Yeah, it's got a bit of Battlefront in there too. I'd say they've
Yes.
got some remnants of that. I think they probably did it to try to maybe make it more uniform, like a console experience, I guess, to try to keep it more consistent for people, to try to keep people coming back. But I don't think that really feeds into the hardcore community as much.
No, no.
For me, tech pickup, I actually got a keyboard. This just came today. It's from WASD. You guys can see here. I'm using it right now. It's all purple and white and gray. It's very hot looking. It's got Cherry
I
MX
did
black
see that.
switches.
I'm not a fan of purple, but I saw that and I'm like, I'm now a fan of purple keyboards.
Dude, it looks awesome. Like I got this for my girlfriend for Christmas, okay? I'm going to be doing a video with it as well, but I'm going to be giving it to her for Christmas cuz she has like a really crappy like membrane keyboard at work that I saw in the background of a picture and I was just like I have to do something about that. So I got this sent out, but now I got it. I'm just like I kind of want a purple keyboard now because this is legit. It's
Yeah.
so nice. And this is the first time I've used black switches. These are pretty good too. I usually use browns on everything.
That looks really, really good. And I love that it's not just the same purple as well. It's like light and then dark purple, which
Yep.
actually looks really good.
What is your favorite mechanical switch?
I don't really have a preference. I can game on them all. I do have Corsair's new keyboard, which is model something, and I just use that. And I have K95s around that I game on most of the time. I love the feel of the K95.
Nice. Yeah, I've got a couple WASD and a Code keyboard. There's just always felt great to me. I like the minimalist kind of design. Before we get into the first thing with AMD, if you guys want to get a shirt like the one I'm wearing today, make AMD great again. It came out these some months back, but I felt like it was appropriate for today's show that I needed to wear the Make AMD Great Again shirt because AMD is definitely seeming like they're great again with the reveal of Ryzen. Finally, I guess we've been calling it Zen forever, but now it's being called Ryzen. Or at least that's probably the SR7 chip, right? Is that what the idea is here? That's the highest end one.
Well, I think that it will be the entire family. I think Ryzen is going to be
Think
like
so?
core.
Gotcha. So they probably applied to the whole line then.
I would say.
So yeah, so I mean, they didn't really change. I don't think we really found out too much that changed from some of the leaks we've been seeing over the course of the past couple months that have been theorizing what it's going to be like. 8 cores, 16 threads, matching performance, or actually even beating the likes of the i7 6900K, which comes in I think $1,050, right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. And they didn't give us a price yet, but a lot of people are thinking it's going to be around the $300 there, just like an i7 processor, like the quad core i7s.
Mm-hmm.
So if they can come out with these at $300 to $400 and they are matching or beating the 6900K like they showed yesterday, where it was matching it in Blender and then beating it in Handbrake and ZBrush.
Yep.
Beating it pretty handily. So if they come out with those $300 or $400, it was running it. You said you saw it right with was it with Battlefield?
Yeah, they showed me Battlefield 1 4K Ultra with Titan-X SLI in 2 systems with 6900K versus Ryzen. No difference. I tried for probably 5-10 minutes of Battlefield 1 and I couldn't tell the difference at all.
And did they have a frame rate counter? Could you see which one was doing better,
No,
or was
but
it
they
just
had
to
it on
see?
a 4K 60 panel and it was far exceeding 60 FPS.
So it was just basically running like grease lightning, no matter which CPU you were using.
Yep. Yep.
So we do know that now that they're going to have a base clock of 3.4 gigahertz with 20 megabytes of L2 and L3 cache, and so that is actually beating out the 3.2 on the 6900K. I guess we're gonna have to see what the ceiling is going to be on overclocks with these, or if they're already being pushed as far as they can go with the 3.4.
Well, I think that's where it's interesting is that the overclocking is going to change because it's all coming down to your cooling. If you have air cooling, then it's going to hit a certain ceiling. If it detects water cooling, there's an even higher ceiling. If it detects LN2, there's an even higher ceiling. That's the exciting thing for me. But then also scary. Will overclocking be as much of a sport as it is on Intel because it's so automated on AMD Ryzen? They didn't really cover that too much at the event.
So how are they really achieving this automation? What are they doing here to kind of achieve that?
So they have a sensor technology, which is detecting. They've got hundreds of sensors on the CPU that's detecting everything that's going on, and then the chip will detect the cooler that's on there. So obviously, if the thermals are there and it can scale up higher, then that boost will go higher. So they said if it's air cooling, it'll be X, gigahertz. If it's water cooling, it'll be Y gigahertz. If it's LN2, it'll be Z. So it depends on the cooling. I think that's why they're only claiming 3.4 gigahertz because they don't want to oversell it. But AMD generally has had higher clock speeds than Intel. So we might see, in excess of 5 gigahertz under water, which would be awesome. And I think at that kind of speed, that's where AMD kind of have an ace up their sleeve.
Yeah, in the past, it's they've been able to get the higher clocks, but it still didn't beat out Intel because it was just slower on the per core. But that's where they're really trying to pull themselves back now,
Yep.
and that's why we're seeing them beating them in the likes of Blender, ZBrush, and Handbrake against the 1600K. I guess I'm kind of curious as to how they're able to do this, and if they're able to come in at the price that people are thinking under $400, how they're able to do that and stay competitive.
The $400 price, I think that was just a leak on Reddit because even I wrote about that. I think I wrote that the highest end Zen CPU at the time, because it wasn't called Ryzen back then, was $499. But I got asked that last week when I was in Sonoma. Hey Anthony, what do you think the price of this chip's going to be? And I said, well, everyone's been saying $499, and they kind of like snapped back saying, where did you hear that from? So I'm kind of thinking that's not the price now. And if they can match the performance of an $1,100 CPU, it could be more expensive. But I think the motherboards will be much cheaper. The motherboards will be cheaper. I don't think we're going to see the $600 boards or $500 boards like we do now. If they can hit the $250 board, the chip can be a little bit more expensive than $400 or $500.
Yeah, that would definitely change things, I think, for a lot of kind of people who are on the borderline of like enthusiasts that don't want to spend maybe more than the cost of an i7. Because everyone's getting excited now, seeing like, are we going to see like basically what is $1,000 processor for around the cost of a regular quad core i7, which would certainly open up more cores to, I guess, a bigger audience out there.
Yep.
But if they're up or over $500, it's certainly going to limit it a bit more. I would certainly still want to get one in and test it out for workload stuff, doing like video editing and the likes of that. But then you have to see it against the quad cores also, because like even on Intel side, their quad cores can generally perform better than their 8 core variants when it comes to just gaming. So where do you think? How do you think AMD would match up with that, even though they're supporting the
I
more
think that it's
cores?
going to be a case of here's our best. The best is it's gonna hit the headlines. It's gonna be everywhere. That's what everyone's gonna be talking about. But the mid-range chips, for even for Kaby Lake as well, I think the Core i3 7350 has the same performance as the current generation i5, and the same thing will most likely happen to AMD's Ryzen CPUs, where we might get a $200 or $300 chip that's equaling, the 7700K performance. And if they can do that, that will be the winner. That'll be the chip
Definitely.
will pave the way for AMD in 2017.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. And it'd be interesting to see how many cores they're going to get in there too. If they're going to stick with the 8 cores or knock it down to quad cores at that price point.
I think we'll see quad core. Quad core with
Quad core.
I think they didn't talk about this at the event, and I don't know how much I can actually say. I think I can say everything now. I think it's the hyper threading equivalent is called Threadripper, which was the trademark talked about last week. So if they can have Threadripper on a quad core, that's all they need. Games don't use any more than 4 cores generally these days. You don't need 16 threads on a CPU for Battlefield 1 or Overwatch or League.
Well, I happened to have Task Manager open earlier today. I couldn't believe this. I was seeing on I have the 6 core 12 threaded 6800K. Watch Dogs 2 was using 95% CPU on its own. I could not believe it. I was just like, I've never seen it used that much before, but it was just owning my CPU, all of it, just every thread just maxed. It's
You make me
craziness.
want to play Watch Dogs 2 to actually see that happen.
I in all of my monitoring when I was benchmarking this game when it first came out, I never saw it go over like 60% of my CPU. So, but I don't know what it was today. I had Alt Tab to close out something else, and I needed to use Task Manager, and I had left it up on my second screen, and I was just driving around in the city, and I just looked over, and I was just like, "That's red. Why is it 95%?" It's like
Wow.
it was just owning my CPU though, driving through the city.
Yeah, that is strange. That is very strange.
Yeah, one of the things I had talked about when this we knew the Horizon it was coming up was I thought that they were going to show Vega possibly along with Zen. I was pleased to see that they actually did do that. This was kind of following up after the Vega leak that got out about the 8 gigabytes of HBM2, 512 gigabyte per second bandwidth, and they were running it on Doom at 4K. And breaking over 60 FPS, which would put it pretty close to a 1080, possibly even just edging it out a bit. We also saw, though, during the Ryzen event, they had showed it off playing Star Wars Battlefront on the Rogue One DLC in 4K, and that was getting more than 60 FPS as well. Granted, though, I thought the portion of the game they were showing where it was just kind of a spaceship flying on into a planet didn't really seem that graphically demanding to me. And both of these games, I would say, probably tend to lean toward AMD to begin with, right?
Yes, definitely.
So I guess that leaves the question is, are they just really showcasing their best? Is it going to be more in line, kind of tying a GTX 1080 and kind of trading blows? After seeing it, winning out in these games, which do favor AMD, I'm inclined to think that that might be the case where it could maybe be falling behind in certain titles that maybe favor Nvidia over the others. So it could be a little bit closer at the end of the day than what we're seeing here in these particular games. So
And I think it's early days as well. This is a pre-production card. This is the drivers. The drivers will be so early, probably specifically built for that particular pre-production card as well. But for them to be hitting this kind of mark so early in the game, remember that we probably won't see Vega 10 until at least May or June. It's good. It's good. A lot of people expected so much more, but for me, single card 4K 60 FPS, what more can you want from that?
Yeah, it would certainly be good. It's going to come down to what games you play too. I mean, I would expect it to also run better in Battlefield 1. And I know plenty of people that go out and pick up GPUs just to play Battlefield 1. So if that's, your game and AMD's going to run it better, then it kind of makes your choices that much easier.
That's it.
But we'll have to see, like DX11 games, how it's going to hold up against the 1080, and also Nvidia's maybe eventual answer to it, which a lot of people are talking about now, is 1080 Ti.
Yes.
We could see Nvidia just kind of waiting in the wings to see what AMD is going to do, or maybe they'll release 1080 Ti right before Vega comes out to try to kind of nip that market in the bud as well. That's kind of what I'm leaning towards. We'll see one of those two things will happen, where we'll see the Ti either just before or after Vega coming out.
Nvidia will be waiting in the wings. They know what they're doing, but I think that AMD have some exciting stuff just in HBM. We haven't seen the size of Vega yet. So if Nvidia release a 1080 Ti, which we know they're going to do it eventually, it's going to be the same kind of sized card. But if AMD can go, well, our card's half the size and the same performance. Yes, size doesn't mean anything, but it allows you to have a way smaller gaming PC with the same graphics power, which we haven't had yet. You can buy a micro ATX board with a Ryzen CPU and have great CPU performance, and then buy a Vega 10 graphics card that will most likely be, I'm hoping, a little bit bigger than an R9 Nano, and it's going to be great. I think that's where they'll have it.
Yeah, I'm pumped to see the 1080 Ti come out. Kind of interested to see where the price point's going to be on it also. We might see the 1080 get dialed back a little bit, maybe $100, and see the 1080 Ti kind of take over that like $700 to $800 area where the 1080 is sitting right now. And then seeing where Vega kind of falls and all that will be interesting to see too. But yeah, we're going to have to wait, I guess, a few more months until we finally get to play with these cards.
I just think it's exciting. AMD have had lower mid-range cards for a whole year. We haven't seen a new high-end card for so long, and now they show it off, and it's like, it's actually good. Yes, it was cherry-picked games, but Nvidia play the same thing. They play the same game when they show off their new card. It's exciting just to see 4K 60 on a single card from AMD, who's primarily targeting a 1080p audience right now.
Yeah, that's pretty much all they've been going after is 1080p and light 1440p with the RX 480 in certain titles. Certainly can't power every game maxed out. But it's still a hell of a card, though, the RX 480. I've been very impressed with that GPU over the course of testing games. And as time has gone on, as you see here with the next story here with AMD Relive, is it Relive or Relive? I think it's Relive.
Relive, yes.
Yeah, Relive. So, yeah, they put out their new driver last week. They were promising some improved performance across games, but also including their new capture software, which is Relive, which is finally something that's going to compete with Shadowplay, which I've longtime herald is one of the primary reasons that I've stuck with Nvidia in my main system is because I use it so much. I use it when I record gameplay because it's easy. I use it to record my desktop if I'm doing news story coverage because it's just easy. It's easier than going into OBS and configuring all that. I could just hit Alt F9 and begin capturing my desktop. So seeing something like this with AMD now, where it's actually even edging out Shadowplay in terms of its efficiency and performance in some games, or at least matching it anyway. It definitely makes AMD a more enticing option when we see the likes of Vega coming with HBM2, and 1080 Ti is probably just going to be the same old thing from Nvidia, just a scaled back Titan X.
Yep. I totally agree. I'm everything you said about Shadowplay, you were ripping the words right out of my mouth. I'm the same. If I'm recording anything or if I'm gaming, I use Shadowplay, and that forces me to use a GeForce card. And that's what held me back from using a Radeon card, because Shadowplay is just so good. It's just so good. But now they've got Relive, and they've got their own capture stuff. It's about time. AMD have made huge strides in their drivers all through this year. They promised they would. A lot of people said they wouldn't. They had, I think, more driver releases in the first 5 months of this year than they had throughout the whole of 2015. So they're trying very hard, and it's paying off. It's paying off in a big way.
Yeah, and I'm definitely going to be utilizing it in the likes of just doing performance, like side-by-side comparisons with graphics cards. Because, I would have comfortably used Shadowplay to record stuff, but then with AMD, I just didn't have anything that could match that because it would take such a much larger performance hit if I used something like OBS or DxTory. So I would do everything recording off-screen with a DSLR, which is a complete pain in the ass.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have a secondary capture system set up. So seeing something like this is certainly going to help me with doing comparisons. I don't know if that really is going to resonate with much of the other GPU users out there, but I like
Now we
it.
just need a card that can do 1440p and 144 hertz, and AMD have me back 100%. That's all they need.
You just want a single GPU solution that'll do 1440, 144 hertz?
Yes. Yep. Yep. But
I
I will be building systems next year. I have some. I don't know if you can see much behind me, but there's going to be a shelving there with I'm going to have 9 displays. I'm going to do 3 triple screen setups and do triple FreeSync, triple G-Sync, and triple 4K 120. So yes, I only want a single GPU, but triple 4K 120 is going to need a buttload of GPU power. So I'm hoping 4 Vega 10s will handle triple 4K 120.
Certainly. Some people were saying in the chat that they could hear me breathing. I guess I had forgot I had turned my gain up the other day for TeamSpeak. I just dialed it back, so hopefully it'll be a little bit less breathy now.
I kind of like hearing you breathe.
Someone called it Joker's Breath Productions over here.
Joker's Breath Production.
Good one. Nice one,
I didn't
Decimal.
actually see that. That's actually really good.
Yeah. Yeah, I had to dial it back. Well, soon this will not be an issue anymore. I'm getting, I know one of my Christmas gifts, I'm getting one of the Yamaha mixers. The thing's way nicer. Right now, I've just got the Scarlett Solo, which is great. It does good audio quality, but it has almost no knobs. I need more knobs. Knobs are good. How many
There's
knobs
a
have you
joke
got?
there somewhere, and I was about to say that's what she said, but I'm sure that someone in the chat is probably thinking it right now.
Yes, many knobs. All right, so Intel looks like it might actually reduce its processor prices, at least on the server side of things. Like ARM is actually eating up a big chunk of their market segments, landing a deal with Alibaba where they're going to be doing all of their servers. And Alibaba is absolutely huge. They are one of the biggest online retailers in the world, bigger than Amazon by about fourfold, according to back in 2015. There was an infograph done where they had showed that they do about 12 million packages a day compared to Amazon's 3 million packages a day. So, I mean, yes, in the US, if you're from America, you're probably thinking maybe even who the hell is Alibaba? Trust me, they whoop Amazon's ass when it comes to the global online retail space. So
Well,
this is a
I think
huge deal.
Alibaba are the same size as eBay and Amazon combined. And when you
They're
combine
huge.
those two companies together, it's just
Yeah, because they're the biggest online retailer for China. So just imagine how many packages they're moving a day just in China alone. So this is not like a small contract that ARM has picked up. This is a huge amount of server space that they're taking away from Intel, and the reason for them doing it is that it's going to allow them to cut down on cost from the better efficiency from the ARM processors, whereas Intel needs to run on x86. So it's just really beating them that price to performance area. So it just makes a lot of sense for Alibaba to go ahead and switch over to ARM. So really, for Intel to kind of compete now, they'd either have to come out with a new lineup of processors which beats them on in that area, or cut their prices. So where do you see Intel kind of surviving going forward in the future here, at least on the
I
server side
think
of
that
things?
they're going to have a hard time because if you look at the shifts that Qualcomm did, I think it was only 4 or 5 days ago they announced that new 48 core SoC on the 10nm process. One, Intel aren't on 10nm right now; they're even struggling on 14nm. And then two, they're losing big contracts or possibly losing big contracts like this to massive companies like Alibaba. So I think that Intel, you're starting to see them, I know, fraying around the edges. You know, AMD are coming in on the consumer desktop side now with some really some promising products. And then you're looking at Qualcomm coming in now, backed up by ARM anyway, and Intel could be losing in a big way. And I don't think we're seeing. This is just the start. I think that this is the start of the shift from Intel having virtually unlimited power to actually starting to take a couple of hits. And these hits aren't just little hits, they're very, very large hits. Because primarily most servers, most supercomputers are shifting to GPUs now. That's what Nvidia were aiming for a couple of years ago, and AMD are aiming for that as well now.
Yep.
And Intel they can't keep up anymore.
Yeah, certainly Intel's definitely fallen behind in that area. I mean, they don't really have to compete with AMD in this space, but ARM is their biggest competition. And then they're also competing with them in the mobile area too, which is really probably probably the largest area for CPUs, I would imagine right now. Yeah, on the
And
mobile side
Intel
of
have
things.
struggled in mobile. They haven't had a foothold in mobile forever. You know, they've
Yeah,
failed in mobile, failed in wearables. and now they're starting to get hit in the server market. It's, that maybe the time of Intel being the number one, at the top of the pyramid is coming to an end, and that can happen. A lot of people go, no, Intel will never fail. They're too big to fail. Every company will eventually fail. You're not going to have unlimited success forever, and we need that. Competition is healthy. It's very healthy. We need Intel to have competition.
Yeah, that's really what it all comes down to. Coming back to Zen, where we started off the show, is that's what Intel needs, is the competition there, a stiff kick in the butt to maybe, improve on their just minimal, like 1% to 2% IPC gains we see every generation on the desktop market.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Unlike monitors, which have always excited me. I'm a big time monitor whore.
Internet high five.
Yep. I've been on my 1440p 144 hertz IPS from Acer for a while now, since these things came out.
Is it the XB270HU?
Yep, it is the same exact one you got behind you there. This thing is absolute gold.
Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, I've been waiting to see HDR though. I've been waiting to see 4K HDR gaming displays and also over 60 hertz. Ideally, we don't have any mention here of what LG is talking about as far as refresh rate, but I'm assuming, since these mostly seem like more professional panels than anything, with the color space that they're talking about on here, these 32-inch 4K, that's a perfect size for me. Have you tried? What sizes have you tried at 4K that you're fond of?
4K. I've tried 31.5 inch, so same 32 inch, and now I think that's perfect. I've got plenty of 28s, like right next to me. I have one in portrait. And 28 inch is just too small, but 32 is just perfect.
Yeah. See, have you tried a 40-inch 4K in front of you?
I have a 39-inch 4K as well. The Seiki Digital, one of the first 4K.
Yeah, those are great.
Those are really good. I love it. I think that size is perfect, but for me to go from 144 hertz, I need to have 4K 120, and wake me up when 4K 120 is here, and then I'll be interested in 4K. 4K gaming to me right now is a gimmick. You need way too much horsepower there's not that much of a gain with image quality. And then you're running it on a 28-inch monitor. You're not seeing everything the 4K has to offer. But 32-inch 4K 120 HDR, $10 million.
I think 32 inch is probably going to be the sweet spot where we'll see a lot of these falling. Although I know for pixels per inch, 40 inches would be probably more ideal. But I've used both, and I think while 40 is nice, I love having it for a secondary screen. For a primary gaming display, I just think 40 is way too big because you're getting it outside your peripheral vision there. So I think 32 really strikes a nice sweet spot where you can leave it at the default DPI setting in Windows, and you're not going to be squinting so much like on a 28-inch screen.
Have you dabbled much in ultra wide?
Yeah, I have tested two of the Acer ones, the 2560 by 1080 and 3440 by 1440 ones.
That I'm looking forward to 3440, 1440. They're going to be maxing out at 190 hertz next year. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see. I haven't been able to find much discernible difference between going from like 144 to 200 hertz though. I tested that on one of the Acer, the Z35, and I couldn't see much of a difference. And as far as ultra wide is concerned, I really like it for the desktop use. I love consuming media on it and watching movies that'll support it, but I could not get into it entirely for gaming, at least in FPS games. I don't know if you had a similar experience.
Because you're going from 144 down to 75 generally. They've got a couple of 100 hertz displays now, but when you hit 120, 144 hertz, it's hard to go back, and I'm sure you're the same. I cannot. If you ask me to play Overwatch and I can't play on a 144 hertz display, I'm an elitist when it comes to that. I just won't play.
See, I can deal with it. I used to be the same way, but then after I had spent like probably 2 months using a 32-inch 4K 60 hertz monitor, and my eyes adjusted back to 60, and I was okay with it. It was a sacrifice I was personally willing to make because I enjoyed having this extra screen real estate so much of the desktop. But when I finally had to send that monitor back, unfortunately, and I had to go back down to a 27-inch 1440p monitor, it was like, for gaming at least, it was like being back at home. It's just so good. It's the perfect size, resolution, refresh rate now for me.
Yep.
listening
Yeah,
to
that
that
monitor
upgrade.
is my favorite monitor. I think Tweaktown just did our Christmas kind of awards, and I still awarded that monitor. I love that monitor. The Predator X34 by Acer is beautiful, but 144 hertz. It's just that's where it's at. That's where it's at.
I couldn't agree more. I've been using 144 for a few years now, and I could not go. I can't. I mean, I could, but I don't. I don't want to.
Yeah.
Just don't. I
You're
just.
spoiled. That's what it is. You're spoiled.
I don't want to.
144 hertz is you having your cake and eating it too. It's just so good. And
I
going
know.
back, like you were saying before, you went back to a 60 hertz panel. I did the same thing for some testing. I tested I've got it down there, an Acer 34-inch, 34, 40, 40, 40, 75 hertz FreeSync. And even the drop to 75, I cringed. But I got used to it. But then you go back up to 144 and you're like, I can see again. Everything's clear and there's no blur. And I'm sure that everyone in the chat's probably thinking this guy's an a-hole. I don't have a 144 hertz display, but when you have a 144 hertz display, you won't go back. They're just amazing. Fluid gaming.
You could spot it so easily too. I can't tell you. I can't tell you how many times where I've updated drivers and I did like a clean install through the Nvidia launcher and reset my monitor's refresh rate back to 60 hertz. The second you move the mouse cursor, you know it. The
Yep.
second you just
Yep.
you move it, and you're like, that's 60 hertz.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
it's
And
it's
so many people they say they can't see that difference. I get so many comments on my Facebook, and they're like, oh, you guys at Tweaktown are elitist. Like Anthony's an elitist. He gets all this stuff for free. That's why he says it. And it's like, no, if you blind tested me, I can tell you the difference between 30, 60, 120.
Absolutely.
When you get up to past that, like you're saying before, at 200 hertz,
Yeah.
I don't think so. But 30, 60, 120, and 10
All
out of
day.
10 times, I'll spot that.
Absolutely. And I don't even need to play a game. Just
Yep. Oh, yeah.
just load up Paint.
Yep.
Just
Yep.
I'll
You
do
can
it
just
with
grab a
MS
window. Just grab a Windows
any
Explorer
any
window.
window,
and just
move a
move that
mouse
in a circle,
cursor.
and you can read the text inside of it. You can't do that at 60 hertz. You can't do that.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. And that's
I
something
worked
that
in
you can't
retail
see until you've
selling
had one.
gaming monitors for like nearly 10 years in my state in South Australia. And people would come in all the time just as 120 hertz was coming out. The Samsung 2233RZ, the first 3D Vision monitor. I got it for 3D Vision and I'm like, 3D Vision's crap. Hey, I've got 120 hertz now. And we
Yep.
had all these customers that come in and wouldn't believe me that 120 hertz was like a godsend. And I'm like, here, and I blind tested them, and I'm like, look, you can just move the mouse and you can tell the difference. And they just would laugh, thinking there's no way that you can move a mouse cursor on a screen and have it be a difference between two displays. And then they try it, and they're like, yep, I'll take one of those. And you don't even need to show them games. When they get into a game, they're just like, yeah, you've just convinced me for the 10th time. But 120 hertz is just, it's amazing. It's amazing. It's the best thing to happen to PC gaming.
Yeah,
One of the best.
basically what we're saying is if you don't have 120 hertz or higher, you need to
Yes.
you need to rethink your life's priorities right now.
Everything. I think, yeah, if you've got a car or a house, sell one of those things and get a 120 hertz display. Or your body. Sell your body. That can happen as well. I'd sell my body for a 120 hertz display.
That's sound advice. I agree with this. I agree with this logic very much. I guess this doesn't really have anything to do with 120 hertz, but goddamn Battlefield 1 looks good in 144 hertz, doesn't it?
Yes. Yes. Every time you speak, it's like, how are you in my mind? Yes. It's a Battlefield 1 at 144 hertz. When you can hit 144 hertz, especially like maybe 120 minimum, it's sublime. It's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
And in this patch that just got released, they actually did some optimization on the CPU side things, CPU optimizations to improve high frame rate operation on high-end video cards where there is no VRAM pressure, which basically sounds like cha-ching, cha-ching, just like, yes, I want all of this right now. Give it to me now in my PC. Yeah. I loaded this up yesterday. I mean, I couldn't really tell a difference between like before and now, but I don't know. As soon as I loaded up the game, it had been maybe about a week since I played Battlefield 1. And I just loaded it up and I was just like, man, this is like just running like absolute butter. And I told my friend who has a Titan X Pascal on the same monitor as us, and he's like, how is that any different than usual? I'm just like, it's not, but it's just amazing anyway.
I need to definitely try that. I feel like I'm missing out now. I need to try that new patch.
Yes, I mean, I was around maybe 40 to 50% CPU usage on the 6-core 12 thread, which was about what I was seeing before. But
That's
yeah,
it. But they did. Battlefield One is one of the most optimized games of this year. That game
oh
is
yeah,
it
it's
scales
amazing.
incredibly well. I think I ran it on like an RX 470, 1080p 60 FPS on ultra settings without AA enabled. That's what $170 card. Running one of the best looking games of the year at 1080p 60. You know, consoles, man. If anyone here reads Tweaktown, I rip into consoles like they're nothing. And I hate how much consoles have just constrained PC gaming for the last 10 years. But DICE did an incredibly good job with Battlefield 1. Like, hat off to them. It's just optimized beautifully.
Well, that was the story. I think it was maybe just a few weeks back where EA had said that they are now putting PC first as far as optimization is concerned, where they're developing games first for the PC and then porting them over to the console, which I had thought was always going to be the case when these newer consoles came out, being on the same architecture, because that's what makes
Yes.
sense.
Yes. But then they don't. And then they wonder, like, I don't know, who remembers using a NES or a SNES or a Genesis? Here in Australia, the Mega Drives, so I have to be careful with that.
Yep.
And there were no day one patches. There was no internet. Now, all these games are shifted towards console development. And now, you might have a GTX 1080 and a full system behind it that you've spent $3,000 on. You've bought an Xbox 360 or Xbox One for maybe $300. You're not getting 10 times the performance, even though you've spent 10 times more money. You're not getting a game that looks 10 times better. It's just where if they made it for PC and then made that the target render and then just baked it down to console, I don't know why they don't do that. Instead, they build it. They build the games for consoles on a PC, and then the PC version of the game runs like crap. It's like,
It's completely backwards, because to me it sounds so simple that you would, develop. It's like, when they do develop a game directly for the PC, you don't develop it for a GTX 650. You develop it for the most powerful hardware out there, and then people lower graphics accordingly, which seems what should happen with the consoles. It should run a little bit not as good as PC on the PS4, and then maybe slightly worse on the Xbox One because it's not as powerful as the PS4 is.
yep.
So
Well,
that's
they could have
this
they
seems
could
how it
have
should scale.
grades. You think that Ultra would be GTX 1080, and then at say 4K, and then to run 1440p 60, you need a GTX 1070, and then medium graphics can be what the consoles run at 1080p. Done. I don't know how we haven't had that. We're in 2016, nearly 2017, and we still have consoles that can barely do 1080p. I was doing 1080p gaming in the late 90s. I had a
Yeah.
1600 by 1200 Sony 21-inch Trinitron, the G520, 1600, 1200 at 100 hertz. Consoles aren't even there yet, and that was 1999.
Certainly. I had somewhere. Oh yeah, what was I gonna say? I had my next thing in my head that I was gonna say when you were done, and I lost it now. Shit.
Sorry.
This happens all the time. I was caught.
Yes,
I'm sorry.
too.
I was caught up in the beauty of that is your beard. So you'll have to forgive me.
Yes. Would you believe this is the first time in my entire life, I'm 33, that I've grown a beard? The first time.
I would believe that. I have trouble growing a full beard like that. I couldn't do it. Mine just doesn't grow in properly. Or
I
maybe I need
just
to eat more
let it grow.
steak.
I just let it go and just let it grow and don't even try and trim it. Just try and keep it up a little bit. It's out of control now. It's getting out of control.
Well, it's looking very manly. I would
Yes.
I would pet it once or twice if you were to
Yes,
allow
I
me.
think Paul and I took a selfie at when we were in Sonoma.
Oh yeah, he
And
got the
yeah,
beard
we
now
had some.
too. Yeah, he's got the beard growing now too. Yeah.
He is a good-looking man. I kind of feel like I'm gonna sway towards him when I'm there. He is a
Yes.
good-looking guy.
He makes a great sandwich too. He made me a sandwich at Land Syndicate. It was a
I did
delicious
not
sandwich.
expect you to say that. I'm thinking, I didn't know where the conversation was going to go, but I didn't think it was going to be like, he makes a great sandwich.
He does. He made a great sandwich. He kind of picked on me for a bit, not for not wanting a bunch of extra toppings, but I was just like, Paul, I like my sandwiches the way I like them, so just make it.
I am not going to tell him that you said that, and if he doesn't watch this, that's the first thing I'm going to talk to him and be like, dude, you made me a sandwich. Like, I've heard you're a good sandwich maker.
He is. He's exceptional at making the sandwiches. So our friend Keith May over at WCCF, he's been on the show a couple times, actually took it upon himself to go ahead and unlock his RX 460 because it was recently revealed by Overclocking.guide where you can actually go ahead and change it from 14 compute units to 16 compute units, giving you 1024 stream processors. So he went ahead and did that himself. He did point out, though, that if you are an RX 460 owner and if you're looking to do this, that it will keep you from running on the latest driver, because with AMD's Relive, they've now re-enabled the BIOS signature check, so that's been re-enabled on there. So if if you do this, you'll have to stay on an older driver. But it's good that he went ahead and did the testing, at least so we can see, if it's really worth actually doing this. He ran through a couple of benchmarks where he saw, let's see, what is this? Average is the green FPS. So on Dirt Rally, he saw it go from 75 to 79 FPS with the additional compute units unlocked. Shadow of Mordor went from 57 to 60. So we're seeing, what is that, about a 5% performance increase roughly. Yep. Yeah, nothing to really, sneeze at. It's a nice little bump in performance. But, is it really worth it doing that, considering that you won't be able to update your drivers or anything?
I think that's the double-edged sword. If you're running games that are older, maybe, and especially people that buy an RX 460, you're probably only playing Overwatch or League or CSGO or Dota. You probably don't need to update to the latest drivers all the time. But that 5% performance, some people might think it's worth it.
Yeah, especially when you're talking about a GPU that's around $100 or so. So that could be the difference between getting you over 60 frames or not in some particular games. Yep. So yeah, it's pretty interesting to see. Just wanted to go ahead and let you guys know about that. If you're running any RX 460s out there and you decide to take it upon yourself to do this, then let me know how it goes, and don't blame me if your computer blows up. It's not my fault. Blame Keith.
I just did it just now and my car blew up. You owe me $100.
I'm sorry, I don't have $100. I'm broke. I definitely don't have $100 to send you. So next up, we've got Crytek has actually gone ahead and removed Denuvo from the Climb, which is one of their VR demos. They're not the first people to do this. Bethesda also did it, and Playdead. So I'm kind of seeing this as, hopefully maybe this will continue happening in the future. These developers will stop using Denuvo DRM, seeing that it's been cracked anyway. I mean, I saw people talking about Doom, which used Denuvo, and then downloading the crack for that and the pirated version, even though they had owned the game, and getting a boost in performance because it wasn't running Denuvo in the background.
I don't know. I come from an era where we didn't have to worry about this, right? Like,
yeah,
we didn't have to worry about this, and having this anti-tamper kind of technology, I understand. But when it starts to cause problems with games, it's just, yeah, I don't know. And why would Crytek just release it and then remove it from the game? I kind of don't get that.
Yeah, well, they're not giving they won't give any information as to why exactly they did it. But I've known games in the past where it's caused issues, with performance. It's happened in many games. Some people had reported back a while ago. I can't remember what game it was, where they said it was basically like frying their SSDs because of Denuvo DRM. I don't know what their evidence was for that.
I think I remember hearing about that, but I can't remember the game.
I think it was
But
Lords of the
Crytek have been going through their own issues for a long time as well. Did you hear that they supposedly haven't been paying their employees again? 3 to 6 months, employees haven't been paid.
Yep.
A long time.
That is a very long time. Yeah, they mentioned that here at the tail end of this article. They said that they don't know if there's any relation between the two, but I don't see how why that would be tied in. But yeah, I hope to just see this kind of stuff taken out of the game, because we've seen that DRM does not stop piracy, and also to not have DRM does not automatically mean your game is going to get pirated into oblivion. Just look at The Witcher 3 as a shining example. When you put out a good game that's well optimized, great story, great visuals, everything from top to bottom, soup to nuts, that game has it, and people will still buy it because they want to support the developers. And that game has not been on sale often. I think the biggest sale I've seen out was like 50% off, so like $30 still, after it's been out for over a year now. And that's, the biggest discount you're really seeing on The Witcher 3, but people will still pay for it because it's worth it. And it's, even though it's a single player game where you don't need online at all to play it, and you could easily go and pirate the GOG version without a crack of any kind, and people still pay for it though.
I think that's what it is, though, is that developers have gotten lazy over the last couple of years or last decade. The whole, as I was saying before, the whole push towards consoles. They're releasing games that, if you make a great game and you sell it well, the marketing's good, you're not like lying like 3/4 of Ubisoft's titles or Activision's titles or anyone like that, then people will buy it. And you look at these games that are released these days where they're half baked, they're not finished, and then they complain, oh, it's the piracy and it's the PC market that's doing it. Then you look at like I said with The Witcher, massively successful series because they made the game great. And people love that game. I'm not a Witcher fan. I haven't got into it. I don't have it's a time suck for me. I don't have the time to do that.
Oh, it is.
I wouldn't work if I did that. I would be out of a job. But the developer, they love gaming and you can feel it in that game. But in so many other games, it just feels like this is the game that we're releasing this year. You better buy it. And if you don't, oh well, because we're going to release another one next year.
Oh yeah, especially with Ubisoft, it's hard to really want to support those guys because it just feels like a money machine constantly. Yep. And also with optimization as well, they kind of leave the PC off to the side, yep. Whereas CD Projekt Red doesn't. More often than not, kind of coming back to what we were talking about before with optimization, and developing for consoles first. It often feels like they just kind of make these games and they just make it basically able to launch in the PC and just shove it out the door. Yep. And they worry about optimizing it post-launch. Like, oh yeah, we'll work on drivers and patch the game after it's come out. As long as it's out there already and we've already sold our copies, then who cares? Yep. Thankfully, Steam refunds actually makes that better.
It makes me sad. I wish that PCs were treated better. People that buy PCs spend much more money on their hardware, and they get the arse end of that deal, and it's not fair. And there are some developers like CD Projekt Red that respect that. Blizzard, Valve, there's a few there that make great games. DICE have made strides in the PC side of their games, but there's so many companies that just don't care. And look at Crytek, how they started. Like the whole can it run Crysis? Crysis was one of the best and still is one of the best looking games, and it came out 10 years ago. 10 years ago. Yep. But then you look at what Crytek did with Crysis 2 and Crysis 3. They're just if they had nailed PC gaming and only stayed on PC, and were always at the forefront. Imagine that they teased a new game in 3 months' time at GDC 17 and said, here's a reboot of Crysis, and you need 2 Vega 10s to run it at 4K 60. And people are like, oh, that's too expensive. Who's going to do that? But then when you look at the game, you're like, yep, okay, I'm going to do that. Because the leap in graphics could be so big. And we need that. We need a new game that comes out that we have to wait a whole year to be able to play it properly. Yes, it'll piss people off, but that's what we need. It's like Dolby Atmos. You get a new standard. You can't complain that you don't have it. You've got to go spend thousands of dollars on an amplifier, thousands of dollars on new speakers, but you need to keep pushing that technology. There's no one pushing that on PC. I wish that Crytek would just reboot the entire company and just full-on 100% PC exclusive games, full SLI crossbar support, full Vulkan DX12 support, and make all other game developers, bend down to their knees and go, wow, okay, we are now 5 years behind.
Yeah, and it's like, and more often than not, you see a lot of these developers coming out afterwards and saying, oh, well, we don't know what PC gamers want. We don't know what to focus on. Like, are you completely oblivious, or are you just playing stupid at this point?
Yep. And Ubisoft do that as well. Like they did it with Far Cry. I have to find the story, but the Far Cry developer said something like about 4K gaming at the time, and pretty much no one needs. Here we go. I have a story that I wrote in 2014. Far Cry 4 developer says that resolution is not something that he cares about in a game. This is the creative director of Far Cry 4, and it's like, if resolution isn't something you care about, that's scary. When you work for a developer that big and resolution is not something you care about, why? Like, for me, if you're at the top of these developers and you're running, everyone else, that should be the most important thing, is the passion behind the graphics and pushing boundaries. We should be pushing boundaries constantly. But it feels like we hit a brick wall, like, I don't know, 5 years ago, where I can now I can have a $170 RX 480 and run everything at 1080p 60. That shouldn't be the case. We shouldn't be doing that these days.
100% agree. I think our audience agrees with you as well.
Yes.
PC Master Race for life.
Yes. I have a console. I have an Xbox One S, and I remember buying it. I put some pictures on social media, and everyone's like, "You're a PC Master Race. Like, there's no way that you should be buying a console." I'm like, "Hold up. I bought it as a 4K Blu-ray player, guys."
That's what I said.
That's the only reason I use it. Came with 2 games, still in their packaging. I have not even touched a game on my Xbox because I won't let myself go down to that level. I feel like if I do that, I will betray my soul.
Yeah, someone was asking me what I wanted for Christmas, and I was just like, well, I kind of want something that I wouldn't buy for myself, so I kind of want an Xbox One S. I want
It,
Xbox One S so I could play Madden. They're like, you want to get an Xbox One S just so you could play Madden? I was like, well,
yes.
no, it also streams 4K Netflix and does a 4K Blu-ray player. So,
Yep.
but basically just that and Madden.
Yep.
They're
Yep.
like,
And the sports games and driving games, I'm with you as well. I totally get why people buy consoles. And I know I bought consoles. You know, I remember Christmas years ago with Nintendo 64 and GoldenEye and all my memories of the consoles back then. It was an amazing time. But then they just watered down PC gaming. You know, there were two separate markets at the time. I understand that they need to have a vertical market that continues to go up, so you need to blend those. But they're two separate markets. You know, look at League. League has as many players on it than there are PlayStation 4 owners. If game companies looked at that and went, gee, if we released a new League game and made it look better, obviously it doesn't need to have a Vega 10 or a Titan X to run it. People might upgrade, but there's no incentive to upgrade anymore. And when these new AMD chips come out and the new APUs towards the end of next year, the Raven Ridge chips, you're going to have a notebook that's going to do 1080p 60 without a problem. And that's great. That is great, but it's not going to push games.
yeah. So our last story here before we get into any Q&A with the audience, and if you guys want to go ahead and start firing us questions to the chat now, we can come back to them and start from the beginning. So this is just a real quick kind of like a PSA. NVIDIA went ahead and rolled out their driver 376.33. This is more of like, almost seems like a hotfix kind of to 376.19. There was some problems with the optimization that they added in for VR. So this is releasing to kind of fix that crashing issues and stuff. And also, the one thing I kind of wanted to note on here is that this actually gets rid of SLI support in Titanfall 2, which I'm sure many people would be disappointed to hear. So, do you think they're kind of shelving that for another day until they maybe Respawn can kind of fix the game to work better with SLI, or do you think they're shelving it permanently?
To me, it pisses me off. I
I
don't
know.
understand how a developer the size of Respawn can have an Nvidia sponsored title and remove SLI from the game. I don't get that. You know, to me, imagine working at Respawn or DICE or whoever. Don't they have PCs that they test on, ultra wides, triple 4K, 4K
They
TVs,
certainly
single
should.
card, SLI, make sure that stuff works. Then they launch it. It's like, we're going to have SLI support in the coming weeks. It's been in development for 3 years. No one tested it with SLI? Are you kidding me? It's just,
Not to mention the engine they're running off of. It's a Call
it's
of Duty
just,
engine. It's Call of
yeah.
Duty. It's was it the Counter Strike right originally? What's the
Quake
engine
3.
called? Quake 3. That's it. Quake
It's
3.
got, the reminiscent
Quake.
code from
Yeah, the
Quake 3,
Quake
which,
engine.
by the way, whoever doesn't know, it came out in 99.
Yep.
And we're still seeing games built on that code, which obviously hats off to John Carmack and id Software back then. But it goes back to the whole what I was saying before about we haven't had an advancement. We're getting games out in 2016 and now 2017 built on technology from 20 years ago.
Yep, I remember watching. I was watching. It was back around the time Doom came out, and I had watched an old docu series on YouTube. I think it was on Machinima. It was like the history of id Software, and it was like a 3 or 4 part series that went through the whole history. It's really well made and everything for I wish Machinima was still doing stuff like this, but it was just amazing hearing them talk about, John Carmack and his changing of the engines basically for their games, and how with Quake 3 it was just adopted by everyone because they just couldn't even come close.
Yep.
And
At
you're
the
still
time,
seeing
I
it.
still
You're
remember
still
when
seeing
that
it
came
used in
out. That
games.
was that was an amazing leap, like Quake to Quake 2, or even Quake with a standard engine, and then when you went to Glide with 3D that was a massive change. And then Quake 2 with colored lighting, that was a huge leap at the time. Unreal came out at that time and had the big environments where Quake was very fast and they nailed the inside kind of like arena shooting. Then when Quake 3 came out, 32-bit color, and it was just amazing. They made such a good engine back then that it left a legacy for 20 years of like how much money has Activision made off of using Quake 3? $1 billion per Call of Duty game, and they've made how many of them now? Like 740. It's crazy.
Yep, certainly is. It's just that's what they had to do with their games back then. Even going back to Doom, it's like, well, the engine we want doesn't exist, so we have to go ahead and make it.
Yeah. And I
So
think
yeah,
it have made good. They've made strides in the last couple of years. Like Doom it looks really good, and it is very well optimized.
yeah.
But I hope that when we see their new game, whatever it is, their next generation game, that it's not just a slight upgrade. I want to see that same leap. But if we see that same leap, maybe id Software could be the new Crytek, which excites me. That excites me because Crytek are just sellouts. I'm hoping that we see something big from id Software with the new engine.
Yeah, I think id Tech 6 for me it mostly seemed more of like an optimization leap from id Tech 5 more than anything because id Tech 5 was capped at 60 FPS, was not incredibly well optimized. It just chewed through video memory like no one's business.
Yeah.
So it seemed like id Tech 6 was more of an optimization upgrade, and I think they utilized Vulkan better than anyone has before or
I think
since.
they've done probably the best implementation of Vulkan. They've really killed it with Doom. It's been really good.
Yep, certainly. All right, let's get into some of the questions. We'll do some questions from the audience before we go ahead and get on out of here. First question, Massive Paper says, my question is regarding BF1 and its downgrade. Any comments on if it's fixed? Not a problem thinking of getting the game when it's on sale. I had heard about this when it happened like about a month and a half ago. I had seen some of the screenshots. It looked like maybe it had a reduction in saturation and maybe some of the world elements like the grass also seemed to have been reduced. I haven't seen any stories covering it, and I didn't have like any screenshots to sort of go back and compare, pre-patch to this patch. And unfortunately, I can't really roll back with Origin. You can't. It's not really an option. So I don't know if they've addressed it or not. Have you heard anything in the air of this with the downgrade on BF1?
I heard about it, but then I haven't played it since. So, or I've just
Yeah.
read about it, but I haven't tried it myself.
I'll have to say, like, even though after I heard about the downgrade, I went and looked at the game, and I couldn't really spot a difference from when I had previously played it. It seemed like, yeah, if you put, screenshots and videos side by side, you can definitely see a difference, but it wasn't anything enough that impacted my enjoyment of the game. It's still a fun game, and the visuals wasn't enough to make me say, hey, this game looks weird. I personally didn't notice it, so I don't know how much of an issue it really was. So
And I think those differences you have to nitpick. You really have to
yeah,
nitpick.
yeah, it is.
If there was a massive downgrade, I can understand, and a little down. I don't like downgrades at all. I hate downgrades. But I don't even know how Dice could do that. Like how do they even do that? How do you even get a downgrade after the game's released?
Simon asked, "What do you think the cheapest Ryzen processor will cost?"
I
That's a pretty good
think we're
question.
gonna. That was a really interesting question. I was hoping that you were gonna pick that up. I think that a lot of people think Ryzen is just gonna be high end. It's not just gonna be like that. It's gonna be like the core range where you're gonna have i3, i5, i7, and I think the cheapest one we'll probably see maybe 149, 199. But I
That's
think that
exactly
we
what I was
might
thinking.
see the Raven Ridge APU, which is Q4 2017, so the last little chunk of 2017. And that's when I think things will get cheaper. So we might get down to the $99 mark, 129, 149. But I think the cheapest Ryzen, maybe 149. But I'm hoping that the $149 chip will equal the 250 or 270, $300 Intel offering. And if they can do that, they can nail that market and sell it with a cheap board from Gigabyte or Zeus for 150 or $200. You're going to get the performance of a $600-700 CPU motherboard coming from Intel for nearly half the price.
Yeah, I think that's probably where we'll see the SR3 lineup falling in is around the $150 to $200, and that could probably. I'm thinking it's going to be a quad core without hyper threading, whereas the SR5 will be quad cores with hyper threading, and then at the high end SR7 we're going to see those 8-core 16 threaded parts. That's my prediction. We'll have to see next year, but that's just my theory. Any other questions in here? Why is S-Line Crossfire so unpopular and unsupported? It seems like a good technology. I'll leave that to you since you are still an avid SLI multi-GPU user. I've fallen off recently, but
Okay, so I have been a multi GPU user since the mid 90s. I had 3DFX Voodoo 1 in SLI, 3DFX Voodoo 2 in SLI. I had every generation. I'm not even kidding. I was spending $20,000 a year on hardware. I didn't go out drinking when I was young. I didn't go out partying. I didn't do drugs. PCs were my drugs. And I've done multi GPU for a long time. We've seen it drop off because game developers have gotten incredibly lazy. I could use as many swear words as I wanted to right now to express how much it pisses me off. But it's game developers. Nvidia did the same thing with the GTX 10 series launch. here's 3 and 4-way SLI, but you need some special source code from us. You need to communicate with us. And I remember sitting next to Jay's from Jay's 2 cents, and we're like, what? Well, why? And then they like nail it down to 2-way, and it's just ridiculous. But it's because the game developers aren't spending enough time optimizing their games, right? So if you have one graphics card, you're getting 100% GPU usage. If you buy a second one, you might see in most games 60 or 70% usage, which means you're only getting 140% performance, which is only a 40% gain, but you're spending 100% more money to get there. If we had 100% scaling, that's what we need, 100%. And DirectX 12 has promised that. We haven't seen it that much. But it's just game developers. Game developers are incredibly lazy. They're developing their games for consoles, which is an APU which is completely thermally constrained so badly. But I think that we might hopefully see a change with Xbox Scorpio, because then people are going to have at least a console that looks better. And I'm not a console fan, obviously, but I think that will make console gamers thirsty for better looking games. And then hopefully that will push hopefully a new wave of games with SLI and Crossfire. But then to finish, I think that VR could hopefully drive multi-GPU, because you're going to need it. When 4K 120 per eye, which is coming, 8K 120 per eye, which will be here in 5 or 6 years, you're not going to be able to do that from a single card. And I think that's what's going to drive a multi-GPU in the future, is 4K 120 hertz on a PC. You're not going to do that on a single card. But then it comes down to the optimization of the game. So even if we have 4K 120, and this is something I've complained to Nvidia and AMD about, where can we go when the games aren't, you're not getting 100% GPU consumption on a multi-GPU system, which sucks.
And that's what it should be. That's what DX12 was billed as from the beginning. When DX12 was still just the thing that we talked about, that's all anyone would talk about is, oh man, as soon as DX12 comes out, it's just going to be amazing. Everything's going to run beautiful. Yep. The skies are going to part, and all GPUs are going to run at 100% usage, and it just has not been the case yet. And a few of the comments here are saying that like the developers are pressured by publishers to release the games early. That I totally agree with that. But then at the same time, if they're making the games nailed on console, they can nail it on PC. And sure, don't release multi-GPU at first. Release it after. And something I brought this up on a live broadcast, Facebook live broadcast that I was doing a couple of months ago. And I said, okay, release the games. So, there's a new game that comes out, whatever game from next year. And then say, here it is on PC. It looks great, way better than the consoles. But for multi-GPU fans, we have to put in a lot of time to actually have 100% scaling, or at least 90%. Even if they charged for that, if they charge people $20, if you've spent $1,000 on your 2 graphics cards, I would pay $20 for an ensured 90% or 100% scaling on my cards. I would, like DLC, I'd rather have DLC that actually gives me way more performance than DLC for in-game items that make my skin in Overwatch look better. I think that would be. I know that I don't agree with paying for additional performance, but if that's something that, if Ubisoft goes, okay, look, if we have 500,000 people paying $20 each, it'd wake them up. It'd wake them up and go, okay, well that's $10 million that we can throw towards some developers, like get a team of 20 people. Okay, you just work on multi-GPU optimization. I think that would be. I would love that. Absolutely. Someone wants to know what do we think the IPC difference will between Ryzen and the likes of Kaby Lake or Skylake?
Very close.
I think it'll be very close. I agree. Someone was asking also before that, he had asked if we thought the mid-range 4-core 8-threaded one, if there is one of those, if that would bottleneck the likes of a GTX 1070. If it's matching what Intel could do with that same part with an i7, then absolutely not. I would see no reason for there to be a bottleneck in games if everything is being utilized the way that it should be and what we're expecting to see.
Someone said Doom is a great example of what devs can do. I totally agree with that. Doom is a great example.
Yep. Someone asked what you think about the future of Linux gaming. I'm not too familiar with Linux gaming. I don't know how
I'm the same. I'm not too familiar. I love it that it's there, and I think that at the window for that to be big kind of passed for now at least with the Steam machines, or Steam Box or whatever it was. But I don't know. I think that could be good, and I think that will change in the future. I think that Microsoft is going to slowly lose PC gaming, and I think that they've done that with Windows 10. You know, they promise so much, but when the Windows Store launches, and I buy Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, not that I did, but if I buy Call of Duty Infinite Warfare on the Windows Store, you can't even play with gamers on Steam. You know, Microsoft are trying to make the Windows Store and Windows 10 something that should be this beacon of PC gaming, but it's not. It's been a mess. Look at Quantum Break.
Oh God! Please don't make me look at Quantum Break.
I don't want
to look at Quantum Break.
In all of my headlines, I ended up calling it Quantum Broken. That was all I called it.
It's a hot mess.
It is.
It is a hot mess. Even with the DX11 version, it's like, oh, this is a little bit better. Oh wait, it's running temporal filtering. I take that back. It's not.
And it's the same thing again. You got to think. Remedy, are they sitting there and no one has a PC there? No one is testing it. Oh, this is actually a pile of crap. Maybe we should delay it on PC because it's just horrible.
It seemed like a great game too. I wanted to play it so bad.
Me too. I'm a massive Remedy fan. I played through all of the Max Paynes. I didn't play Alan Wake.
I loved Alan Wake. I loved Alan Wake.
Massive fan of Remedy, and they just, when that game came out and I saw that there was that many problems, I don't have the time to have problems with my PC. It's just not good.
Last Panther, one of our mods, asked if I had noticed his donation. I did not see any. I didn't see the whole thing light up green. I don't know if it was earlier on. Maybe we were in the middle of a story. If I didn't catch it, I apologize. But I did not see it, Panther. If you had a question associated with it or something you said, then let us know in the chat now. I'll see it.
Simon says, what do we think about the 490? Will it be a dual Polaris GPU or a Vega with the 500 series? I think that Vega will be like the Fury series. It'll have its own name. So we'll have like, AMD Vega Nano, AMD Vega X, something like that. And I think the 500 series will maybe be the Polaris refresh. And the dual GPU from AMD, who knows? I think I have heard from my sources that there will be a refreshed 480 with a new PCB, a refreshed power delivery system because of all the problems that the RX 480 launched with. And if they have a 30% increase in performance, that's enough to topple the 1060. That's enough to really hurt the 1060. But as for the dual GPU, I don't think that's worth it. Not on Polaris. I think that AMD, if they're going to do dual GPU, go balls to the wall and release Vega 10 with 16 gig of HBM2, $1,400, dual GPU that uses like 400 watts of power, 4K on a single card. And I will have a constant erection for like 3 months straight.
I would definitely buy or beg for one of those. One of the
I would love it. And people go, I don't want to have all that power. I don't want to have all that all that heat. And AMD has always been hot. And it's like, but if you give me the performance, if AMD can genuinely give me the performance, I don't care how hot it runs.
And it scales. How loud
it runs.
And if it's optimized at the driver level to scale too, that's important as well.
And I think that if AMD play their cards right. That's a good pun. If AMD play their cards right, and they really adopt multi-GPU with Vega, because they've said that they want to, with Polaris, they didn't lock it down to 2 cards like Nvidia did with the 10 series. If AMD really adopt the multi-GPU market, they're going to have a very big chance to go, hey, look, buy a Ryzen chip, which kicks ass, the 16-thread chip, and a really kick-ass board, and 4 Vegas if you want it, because you can do it.
Yeah.
Instead of Nvidia going, yeah, you want it? Well, we don't want to let you do it. Give the gamers, give the consumers the option to do it. If they don't want to do it, most people can't afford 4 cards. But if you can do it, do it. And if they can optimize it, if they can optimize the games, that's what we need. And I think that it doesn't matter how fast the cards are, it comes down to game developers. They need to wake up. I'm hoping next year to go and visit a few and ask some very raw questions like, what the hell are you doing? And whatever drugs you have, please share them with me.
Yeah, and I would like to see them do the multi-GPU thing. It does seem like it's kind of for their taking, being that they are better optimized than likes of DX12 and Vulkan. So if they could focus on that and just get down the parallel rendering with the Vega GPUs, then that would be awesome. I would jump ship immediately.
Yep.
And then throw me a 4K HDR 120 hertz FreeSync monitor, and I'm a happy man.
I feel like this live show that in the scene in Step Brothers when they're like, "Did we just become best friends?"
Yep.
That's what I feel like. That's everything you say is like, yep, 4K 120 HDR. I run Nvidia pretty much exclusively now, only because I need 144 frames a second, and no AMD card can give me that. But I will be switching. I've got about 5-6 systems here. I'm switching 3 or 4 of them to Ryzen next year, and I had plans to do that before I even knew what the performance of Ryzen was from last week. And then I'll switch over to Vega 10 graphics cards. But I'm still waiting to, as someone just said then with Joe said about Volta. I'm still waiting to see about that. But I don't think we're going to see consumer graphics cards or consumer GeForce cards with the Volta architecture next year. We'll see it unveiled at GCC 17 in May, but I think we're just going to see Pascal refresh 1100 series or 11 series.
God,
Volta will
another
be
refresh. Vega will be. I'm looking forward to Vega, and I'm kind of in the same boat as you. I'm looking forward to the Ryzen chips. I want to put those in a couple systems. They just seem like a much, not only more exciting, but a much more enticing options. Being that they're going to have multiple versions, and I'm going to want to do test systems for testing GPUs and an editing rig and all that. It just seems like a better option to kind of just go with those and kind of scale them back based on my needs for the different rigs.
And it makes I'm excited. I'm excited, man. Like AMD will ask me like, what do you think? And it's like all the professional side of me aside, I'm a gamer. I love enthusiast hardware. I love all hardware. For AMD to be back in any form, even if the performance was 20% less than Intel, it's still a big jump. But for them to actually be competing neck and neck with an $1,100 or $1,050 CPU, that's crazy. And then they finally have a graphics card or a GPU architecture that can compete against Nvidia. Nvidia most likely won't have a HBM2 based consumer GeForce card in 2017. You can see that they're making plays now for GDDR5X with the 1080 and Titan X. They're making plays for GDDR6, but I don't think we're going to see a consumer GeForce card with HBM2, and that's what makes it exciting for AMD. Everyone goes, oh, but 8 gig isn't enough. I need 16 or 32 gig or whatever. And it's like, no. If you look at the compression algorithms that they have inside of the Vega architecture, which I can't talk about much, it's exciting. You don't need to have 16 gig of RAM at VRAM. You don't need it. You just don't need it. And the compression and the memory bandwidth, like 1 terabyte a second of speed on HBM2, that's all you need. I'm pumped for AMD, beyond pumped. Nvidia, we know they're going to release an 11 series. We know that the 1080 Ti is going to be between, like you said before, between 1080 and Titan X. That's a given. I'm not excited about that because it's predictable. Intel's Kaby Lake, predictable. But AMD's Ryzen, 100% not predictable, and Vega is not predictable. I think I cannot wait. Cannot wait.
Yep, I'm definitely on the same page as you there. Well, we're going to go ahead and wind down the show now and get on out of here. But thank you for joining me, Anthony, this week. Did great. I think everyone in the chat seemed to enjoy having you on. We'll definitely have you on again in the future.
It's awesome.
Yep, definitely have you on again in the future if you're available to do more shows. Thank you. Yep, and thank you to all our mods and everyone in chat for helping out. Last Panther, Neo Voodoo, saw a bunch of our mods in there. Thank you for helping us out today, guys. And one person I saw, my shirt, they were asking about the shirt. I mentioned at the start of the show. This is on my shop over on Spreadshirt. I put a link down in the description below. It's on like the second or third line. If you want to get one of these shirts, you can go grab one. Make AMD great again.
I'm going to be buying one of those. I hadn't seen them until today. So as soon as I'm finished here, I'm going to go buy one of those shirts. And I hope that I get it before CES and I'll wear it at CES.
That would be awesome. And I look forward to seeing you wearing it. I've got the black one, but so far most people on Twitter seem to be ordering the red ones, which makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think I'll probably get a black and a red one.
Yeah, the red does make sense. I might have to get a red one myself. All right, well, thanks again, Anthony. Be sure to check him out over on Twitter at Anthony256. All of his information is linked below, or you can read his articles from when they go up time to time over on Tweaktown. He's the senior editor over there. And we'll catch you guys next time.
Thanks, guys.